Welcome to the Cool Tools Show. I'm Mark Frauenfelder, Editor-in-Chief of Cool Tools, a website of tool recommendations written by our readers. You can find us at cool-tools.org. I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Kelly, founder of Cool Tools. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, it's great to be here.
In each episode of the Cool Tools Show, Kevin and I talk to a guest about some of his or her favorite uncommon and uncommonly good tools they think others should know about. Our guest this week is Joe Szuecs, the founder of the Maker Music Festival. Joe is also the president of Chimera Arts Makerspace located in Sonoma County, California. Joe's a software developer, artist, musician, and avid home cook. I've known Joe for probably 17 or 18 years, one of the most artistic makers of things I've ever met. So, Joe, it's a real pleasure to have you on Cool Tools.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
And we're really delighted to hear the recommendations you have for us, and thanks for joining.
Oh, great. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Joe, I just love the stuff you make. It's always beautifully made, and there's a sense of cleverness and humor in it. We'll have links to your site so people can see the really cool things that you make. It's so much fun. First up, you want to talk about something. This is something that I've been dabbling in. I think is really cool, and I can't wait to hear your take on it. It's some software called Sonic Pi.
Yeah, Sonic Pi. So, one of the things I do is I'm a musician, I'm a guitar player, and I gig here and there locally and make music. And the past year or so, I've ran into Sonic Pi because I was looking for as a pro, because it combines two things: me as a software developer and me as a musician, right? Mm-hmm. So now I've got this Ruby-based coding language that I can make music with. And so, for instance, once I got figured it out, I wrote my own drum, like kind of a drummer, drum machine where I could enter in patterns and blah, 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 blah. And so now I can use that as a backing, which is kind of complements, as I don't know, Mark probably knows, I have built my own physical drummer in a suitcase, which I've had.
So cool.
I use, yeah. The other thing, too, with Sonic Pi, it was kind of cool because I been getting more into composing and doing things like that. And so... And then it sort of as a programmer, flowcharty kind of guy, there are these sort of rules for chord progressions in music. And so I was able to sit there and to write new kind of songs. I wrote this application in Sonic Pi to just generate chord progressions, and then it would just play them. And so I would just listen to them, right? And then I would say, I kind of like that passage. So now you could pause it and then see what it did. And then I could take that and go from there as to an actual composed music that I would record later. So, it's good for that, all that sort of stuff. It has a great sort of also deals with samples really well. So about a year and a half ago or something, I'm trying to remember who it was. It was through, I think, someone like the Smithsonian or something, but they released a whole library of samples. And it's just got all this kind of crazy old musics, all from movies and things like that. And I use that to kind of play around with layering sort of these sort of sample pieces of layering sound over these chord progressions and things like that. And so it's just a lot of fun to play with, to create these sort of things that you can build as a tool or just kind of explore and play with. So so Sonic Pi, definitely thumbs up as a fun environment.
One of the things I liked about Sonic Pi is it has a really great tutorial, an interactive tutorial, so that when you first fire it up for the first time, it's very conversational, where there's just saying, here's a line of code, change this number from 40 to 50, and you can hear the tone increase. Now let's add a randomizer so that we can warble the sound. And so in a half an hour, you are starting to make some really interesting synthesizer sounds with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's got a very low entry level.
Yeah.
So is it more like a language, like a processing language, or is there an interface to the software, like an app where you are dragging things, or is it like a programming language where you are just working with text?
The basic interface is like a programming language. Yeah. And so it's sort of like back in the old Visual Basic days, or so, like a language like BASIC that was interactive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's like. And you can dynamically play it. So it's not like, oh, do something and hit run. It has these live loops in there where you can actually interactively change. So it's set up as a performance engine as well, not just, hey, make this thing and play it and see what happens.
Yeah.
So that's the cool thing. Now, that said, you can create through OSC and things.
What's OSC?
It's basically a communication protocol. And you can sit there, and now people have created front ends for it using things like processing and things like that.
Okay, so, but the output basically is still just going to be code.
Yeah, well, the output is sound. Yeah, is what the output is.
Yeah, the input's code.
Yeah, the input. So
the output is actually sound. All right.
Yes, exactly. And so, for instance, like with the little drum machine thing that I wrote, well, it's not that little, but you can then what you can do is you can sit there and go, okay, now output to audio, and output the audio track by track. And so then what I do is then I import that into my digital audio workstation,
mm-hmm.
right? And so so anyway, so the output of Sonic Pi is sound.
Okay.
Joe, I have a question. I was thinking it would be fun to. It runs on Raspberry Pi, which is cool.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to like install it on Raspberry Pi, have a script running, and then have like some potentiometers or sliders to control some of the variables in there? So you would have like a little standalone kind of synthesizer that didn't use a keyboard for the input, but some controllers and sensors and things like that. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, yes, you can. Right. Yeah.
That would be so cool. I'd love to talk to you offline about it.
Yeah, it's nothing I've done, but we'd have to do some research. But I know that's completely possible. Yeah.
That would be so cool to make little gadgets, because you can buy a Raspberry Pi Zero for $5, and then imagine like a little cool synthesizer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, okay, yeah.
You could have a synthesizer that's controlled by animals.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
One for your dog.
Yeah.
Well, you can even have it controlled by scanning things coming off of Twitter and stuff like that, and search. All that. That's all that whole world too, where it can be controlled by a website, right?
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, Sonic Pi sounds like a fantastic tool.
Yeah, it's free.
Cool.
It's free.
Sonic Pi.
And it's Python based?
Ruby,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ruby based.
Right.
Okay.
But you really, the scripting language is so easy that I don't know anything about Ruby, and I was able to like start making interesting sounds right away.
Yes. And it's not total formal Ruby. So you can do things like in Ruby. And it's like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Okay, so it's semi-Ruby.
It's based on Ruby.
Yeah. Quasi-Ruby. Quasi-Ruby. Okay, so what's your second tool, Joe?
Let's see. The second thing,
large format Chinese laser cutter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The Chinese laser cutter. So at the makerspace here, in most makerspaces, there's laser cutters are kind of expensive, especially for high powered ones. But we found that we bought this Chinese one a while back, and it's big. It's 3 foot by 4 feet.
And does it have a model number or name or something?
No, they're just kind of these Chinese laser cutters.
They're like an AliExpress deal.
Yeah, exactly. It's AliExpress. You got to always do some research to find them. But the ones you want are ones that have a Ruida controller.
And how do you spell that?
RUIDA. And the reason why is because then it'll run Lightburn, which is the controlling software.
Okay.
So it's not the hardware that's the key thing.
Oh yeah, no, the hardware is great. And so the thing is, it's that one, they're inexpensive. So if you look at a large format laser cutter, they're like $10,000-$20,000, right? And these guys are around $4,000. So
wow.
Exactly. Which is, we got one. And then the thing is that they work great. We've run ours for at least 5 years, and we've got members who don't know what they're doing running them. And so it's held up. Today, I maintained ours and replaced the lens. We've got it was a minor thing. And so, so anyway, so I think it's just that they're worth a serious look at if you're a makerspace or even for a personal user. And then, for instance, and the ones that we have are 100-watt models. So they're quite large, for 3 foot by 4 foot cut area, but they're also very fast. And then, personally, I have a Glowforge, and, I don't want to beat them up on air, but, I'm not that happy with the Glowforge.
And why not?
A couple things. One thing is that, say with a normal laser cutter, it's like, okay, here I made my design. I put it into this, in this case, Lightburner software. You're going to transfer for it. Okay, it cuts it. Great. It's gone to the machine. Hit a button, cut it up, move it, hit a button, cut again. They have a business model with Glowforge that it's like, okay, I want to cut a pattern. Okay, it's going to go to the cloud, to their cloud. And it's going to say, okay, now it's going to load it down into your machine from the cloud. And then if I'm cutting it again, you got to go through that whole thing again. It's just ridiculous.
It would help to have it as standalone for sure.
Yeah. So if there's no direct connection between your computer, and so you have to have internet, which generally is okay, but if the internet goes out, you're not cutting anything. And then now it's like, oh, you want us to download your design fast? Oh, you have to pay more for us, get a subscription now every month. It's just one of these things where it was designed, and, it's just a business model around it is a little
I see.
Gauzy.
And would you, maybe you don't want to personally in your garage want a 3 foot by 4 foot laser cutter, but laser cutter, but are there smaller Chinese laser cutters?
Yeah, they're called K40s, and that's the same power as a Glowforge.
K40, is that a brand or
a generic kind of classification? 40 is the power of the
Oh, I see, 40 watt.
So they're called K40s, and so yes, and those are smaller.
And how much do they cost these days?
I think the K40s they're under $1,000. I think they're like $500.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so if you want to get into laser cutting and play around, go for it. And just do your research there's plenty of stuff online, plenty of YouTube stuff. Do your research on which ones are the ones to get. They change all the time. So that's why it's hard to say, buy this model,
Uh-huh.
And Joe, are you usually using like Adobe Illustrator to make your files?
Well, Mark, that leads me into my third cool tool.
Inkscape. Wow. Inkscape. Okay. Yeah, we're kind of skipping one, but yeah, let's talk about Inkscape, and
and so Inkscape is what I use to generate patterns. It's free, which is nice, so you get into it and play around with it. So actually on May 24th, the new version came out, and I just downloaded it yesterday, and I gave them $20 because it's the right thing to do.
And Inkscape is sort of like an Adobe Illustrator equivalent. It's not just for laser cutting. It's it's an Illustrator.
It's an Illustrator equivalent.
Okay.
The nice thing about it, one, it's free. Secondly, I prefer how it works. I prefer how the interface works. In Illustrator, you kind of get a whole bunch of stuff, and with Inkscape, it's like, okay, I'm here. I like how they're manipulating nodes and manipulating the images works. It's just, I find it much easier to use with, and it's fast, much faster. It doesn't have all the overhead of Illustrator. So I think for, if what you're doing is for mostly laser cutting and things like that, it's a great way to go. And then for instance, with the Maker Music Festival, Mark's probably seen it. That whole interface, those are SVG files, all those buildings, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was all done in Inkscape, right? And because SVG files can be manipulated by JavaScript. So basically I was doing a number of projects before this where I was using JPEGs and overlaying things, and you have to tell them where to go and everything. Whereas with the SVG files, they're JavaScriptable. You can tell it that if you click, something's going to happen here. You can manipulate them and change them. So, so I use Inkscape to design that whole interface and do all of that. Anyway, so
cool.
If you're an Illustrator person, no, do your Illustrator. But if you're kind of up and coming and and want to install it on a bunch of machines and run them all at the same time,
don't some people use like SketchUp to do things to print, to cut?
Oh yeah, there's a plethora of tools
Okay.
nowadays you can use for stuff, So,
Right.
but Inkscape people kind of they like it, and I like it, and it's definitely in it for the price. It's a great tool.
Yeah, I've used it on like a Linux laptop, and it is really great. I mean, it's full featured, and I when I was using it, I didn't see anything that I wished I had that is on Illustrator that isn't on that. So
Yeah, exactly.
good
And
stuff.
actually, the new version now you can actually copy nodes, partial nodes in it, which is a thing that I always wanted. So that's in it now. So
And do they have like paid versions, or how do they keep
no,
doing it?
it's open source. It's I forget the organization behind it, but it's free. It is free, and of course they just request a donation. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't think you can buy. You can't. It's not. No, here's the pro version. No, it doesn't exist.
That's amazing. So Inkscape with a K40 laser cutter would be a good place to start.
Yes, one that comes with a Ruida controller.
Okay. And Lightburn is something that you would go from Inkscape into
Yeah,
Lightburn.
exactly. So Lightburn will take.
It's like a slicer in a
Precisely.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and now Lightburn, it's a great. Now that one it costs $80. You can use it for a month without it, and then it'll cost you $80 for it.
Alrighty. Okay. So this is great stuff.
Cool.
The other fourth
Yes.
tool.
So
tell us about it.
Yes, as a guitarist. So years ago, I bought an old Gibson 1934 L4, right?
1934. I mean, a guitar that was made in 1934, or was that just the model number?
Nope, made in 1934. L4 is the model number. Okay, I bought it at Griffin Guitars down in Palo Alto when I lived down there, and so basically, it's a Gibson. Okay, it's old, and and so it's got all that. So it's pretty cool. The thing was that with mine, it was that the sun had faded out the serial number, and so it knocked its value down quite a bit because now they can't trace it and da da da. The other thing about the 34 L4 was that it was a working man's guitar, nothing fancy. It's not very collectible, so. But it's a great guitar. The finish, all checked, and it's obviously sweat stained, and the whole sort of thing, da da da. The funny thing was, a number of years ago, I saw Mark Ribot perform in San Francisco, and he has a very similar guitar. He didn't even know what model it was, but that's what he plays. And the thing is that they sound great. They're just get one that's beat up, that's kind of beat up. Not cracked, and the make sure it's in decent shape, but very playable. And you can get them for about $1,000. And it's just a cool looking thing. It's a cool guitar. It sounds great, and you don't worry about it because it's all beat up already.
And
that's a plus.
Where does the great sound come from? What is it that is making the great sound? I can kind of understand like a violin where there's kind of complicated structural acoustics, but my vision of a electric guitar is that it's a piece of wood with electrical sensors on it, and
this is 1934. That's before electronics. These are.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and so your analogy to the violin, it's the same thing.
Right.
It's actually, and these are arch tops, and so they're carved top guitars, exactly like a violin.
Okay.
And so that's one reason they sound great. Secondly, as with violins and with all solid top guitars, the tone gets better over time. As the wood, whatever the physical changes are with the resins in the wood harden, all this stuff, and the wood matures, they get sounding better. So the other thing about getting an old one is they're worn in. They sound great. Yeah. They're not as brittle as a new guitar.
Okay. Yeah, I saw the word Gibson and I immediately thought of electric guitar. I'm sorry. So
yeah, no, they have a long heritage of wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like, and is there like a place one goes to find old Gibson guitars, or is it just hit or miss? You happen to
Nowadays, it would be reverb.com. It would be eBay, the standard players these days.
Reverb is a site for
For guitars.
Guitars?
Guitars. Yeah. It's a big one for guitar. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And of course, eBay's the other one, and then of course, your local guitar shops.
Right.
So I know in LA there's a big one.
McCabe's.
They have a pretty big. They do a lot of YouTube stuff. I always watch their videos there. It's over Tarzan. I don't know. I forget. I think I want to say
there
Tarzan.
is a good one in Tarzan. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, that's the one. That guy. Yeah, but he's got beautiful instruments there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well these are great. So if someone can you tell us about what you're working on next, and where people can go to find out more?
Yeah. So what I'm working on next? Well, I'm going to be working on. So the thing is, I did programming for years, and sitting behind desks staring at computers, blah blah blah. But I've always liked to build things. So what I do is I kind of split my time toward doing software development, and then doing fabrication. So basically, like right now, I'm working on 2 restaurants, and what I create what I would call, they're kind of like sign art for these places.
Wait, you say the sign art?
Sign art, yeah.
You mean like a sign?
Sometimes they kind of, it's basically, obviously with these places, you're going to put their branding, their names on these things.
Uh-huh.
And so it's like, and so I kind of come up with kind of nice ways of enhancing their interiors. And so, for instance, one place we cut apart a bike, and I LED'd the wheels, and they become sort of like wall pieces, art pieces.
Oh, okay.
And then one I'm currently working on is going to be sort of layers of lettering, and it's going to make kind of these walls of this kind of letter art, and things like that. So I've got a couple of those going right now. The other thing is the Maker Music Festival. We had the big thing on 15th, 16th. We had like 20 hours of live streaming, as well as that was a big push to get the site up with almost 300 projects on there. And that's still there, and that's still living. And so now we're working on keeping that going. So monthly live events, as well as working on collaborative things. I had a meeting this morning with Cynthia from Jack Trip, which is a live synchronization tool out of Stanford's Karma. And so anyway, so we're looking at collaboration and things like that. So there's a bunch of stuff to do with the Make Music Festival. So, and then we're also, in fact, this morning we're talking with MIT to do a sort of an interesting interface for them for one of their departments. And so that's another group that I work with.
Cool.
Great places.
And I know that you run a maker space as well.
Yes, well, I'm the president.
Right. So I know that's been
I'm working on. Yes,
that's been a tough time during the COVID because of the restriction, social distancing. But tell me a little bit more about the current advantages of that. I mean, it's not a new idea, but I do think that people should be more aware of them and the possibilities of that, and they should check it out locally, whether there's one available. But what could people expect for a makerspace if it was one in their neighborhood?
Yes, well, you're right. They should seek it out. And basically, if you are a craftsperson, are a maker, if you are interested in making things, what a makerspace offers you is a full palette of tools: laser cutters, 3D printers, wood shops, jewelry studios, welding equipment, along with the classes and the staff and expertise there to get you up to speed on them. So instead of saying, oh, I want to start doing laser cutting, oh, let me start looking at buying a laser cutter. No, go to your local makerspace. Learn about the laser cutter, get hands-on experience with it, figure it out, and talk to other makers and interact with other makers, see what they're doing. And you can get it all figured out and then decide, and they'll even help you figure out what you might want. And then in the case of, like you said, with a 100-watt laser cutter, it's the size of a refrigerator. It's like, that may not work. So you'll be able to do larger scale projects, And so basically, you become part of a community of makers. You get access to experts, as well as, we put together, we have a bunch of classes and things like that. And then we also offer volunteer opportunities for people. They can come in and they can use the space for free just by giving some of their time.
Wow. And on a national average, what kind of a range of fees would a typical makerspace charge?
Tech shop was pretty expensive. We're like, basically for $50 a month, you get like a week of access. And then, and so, and then in our professional plan, which means you can come every day of the month for, full. And then we don't charge if you're using a laser cutter. There's no additional charge. It's just like you've paid your $50 and you can use all of this stuff. And our professional membership's $150 a month, and that gives you full access. Yeah,
right.
So very reasonable.
And then you might have workshops or classes that you also would charge for outsiders who don't have a membership.
So trainings are generally free on most of the stuff. The trainings that take a lot of time, they may cost you $50, like the wood shop, because it's dangerous, and so we have to make sure you're qualified. So, and it takes a bunch of time on our staff's time. So not nominal charge for that. And then there's various classes and things like that.
Right. And do you have if someone somewhere in a different part of the U.S. was looking for it, are there maybe 30 in the U.S. at this point, or 100, or what's the general availability of makerspaces?
That sounds about right. It's kind of hard because a lot of like for instance, usually any university will have a maker lab.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Sonoma State certainly has one. And then you have, like, for instance, the public library has a little maker lab in it here in Sebastopol as well. I think it just is a 3D printer and something. But so and a lot of schools now do have maker programs, like high schools and things like that as well. So I think for youth, they're around. As an adult, I think every major county would have one. Like there were two in Sonoma County. One of them closed just before COVID. So we're the only one in Sonoma County. And in the East Bay, you've got the Crucible, as well as a couple other ones down in the Bay Area. So in the South Bay,
okay,
the name's slipping me. So
in
a metropolitan area, you'll have them.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, I encourage people to at least investigate that possibility, rather than, as you say, even if you do intend to make your own workshop, it's a great way to try things out to see the scale of which you might need things and things that you may not need.
Exactly. And we even have people. I mean, people are running businesses out of our space. So
I mean, they're making something and they're using your space as their as their production place.
Right,
oh,
exactly.
Wow.
And we've launched numerous local businesses. Same thing. People come in, they learn how to do laser cutting, develop a product line, and then they're up and running, and they go on and do their business.
So Makerspace is definitely a cool tool itself.
Absolutely. One of the coolest.
Cool. Well, Joe, this has been great finding out all the stuff you're doing and catching up with you.
Yep,
and
it was a pleasure to see you and hang out with you.
Yeah. It was really fun. And like we were telling Sherry on the previous podcast, really looking forward to Maker Music Festival going live again.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
That'll happen. And so people can go to just makermusicfestival.com, and eventually there will be information about that.
Yep. Exactly.
Sounds great. Well, Joe, thanks so much. It was a blast.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, everybody. It's Mark from the Cool Tools podcast. I want to thank you for being a listener to Cool Tools. And I also would like to let you know about our Patreon page. If you would like to support the Cool Tools show, as well as our video channel, the website, and all the newsletters that we do, you can go to patreon.com/cooltools. That's just one word, Cool Tools, and pledge any amount you want. You could even pledge $1 a month. Every little bit helps. We have editors, we pay for transcribing costs, we pay our reviewers. Every bit of money that you contribute goes towards supporting the show. I'd like to give a shout out to our supporters of the Cool Tools podcast. This week, I'd like to thank the following Patreon supporters: Bill Schuler, Bob Kay, Ryan Pelly, Carl D. Patterson, Chad Cosby, Chris Wieland, Chris Weirstook, Craig Tooker, Dan O'Brien, Dean Putney, Danelle Cunningham, Evan Barker, Graham Medlin, Hans Riesbeck, Helen Hegedus, Jerry Kearns, Jim Lesko, Jim Spofford, John Pollock, John Burdenbaugh, Keith O., Ken Altman, Les Howard, Lauren Bast, Mock Nerd, Malton Make, Mark Goebel, Matt Gromes, Michael Douglas, Michael Jones, and Michael Pecorini. Thanks to all of you for supporting the Cool Tools Show. We really appreciate it.